everyone for joining us for our first.
This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, wow, that was a weird voice. Thank you for joining us for our new format of the TBW Tuesdays. We are going to kick it off with Pat Bell Burnett and Miss Pat Jasso. I'm going to turn it over to them. Ladies, the floor is yours.
Well, welcome. One of the things that the past state presidents were talking about during our session when Madam President got us all together was talking about the issue of mental health. And I know that that is a topic that you can't really, there's a stigma. Let's just be out front about that. But one of the things that affects us all is definitely talking about mindfulness, and the phenomenal woman is what Pat came up with talking about this particular topic. And I think throughout the presentation, you're going to hear me talk about the fact of what an impact this was when we were talking about it as the past state presidents. And for those of you that didn't know, when we lost past state president Kim Sullivan, she had mentioned at our meeting when we brought up the discussion about doing something about mental health. And she shared with us that as a veteran, she had gone to the VA to start getting some sessions on that, which I thought was very touching. And then, of course, subsequent to that, her passing. And when you find out about that, you think we really need to be mindful of what's happening. Pat?
Absolutely. Thank you, Pat, and welcome everyone. In addition to what Pat has shared, there's no way for us to cover all the things that are so important about this topic. So we hope that tonight will just be something that will encourage us to find at least one nugget that will take some time, prioritize ourselves, and do a little more research and thinking about where we stand with this and how we can position ourselves to be more mindful and really embrace the fact that we are each phenomenal women.
And of course, we love this saying. I think I've seen just about each one of us share this. Here's to strong women. May we know them, may we be them, may we raise them. And it just speaks to, it's easy to say that we know them and do them, but we have to not only raise them, but raise them up to recognize that it can take a toll and that we want them to be prepared for what's involved.
Yes, and in raising them, I have a daughter. I think it's really important not only that they know us as strong women, but also as strong women who have hard times and we know how to reach out for help. And so I think that's also very important in this saying. Okay, you want me to take this?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. So one of the reasons that we've coupled mental health through the mindfulness piece, and you are a phenomenal woman, is this what we have on this slide here. And it says, you are a phenomenal woman if you think something is amazing, astounding, or marvelous. This is what you would think about yourself. Then you can also call it phenomenal. And I think when we talk about the mental health journey, Sometimes we think everybody else is worth our time and our sacrifices, but do we feel that we are worth that time and sacrifice as well? And you look at these pictures, the picture of majestic mountains and the beautiful clouds, and if you could put yourself in the moment of just looking at that, imagine yourself on a plane ride and you look down and you're just awestruck by the wonder. Well, we, I believe, should also look at ourselves in the mirror and say, you know what? We're not perfect, but we are phenomenal. We are amazing. And so we're worth this journey of also valuing our mental health.
One of the things that happens is what we have the mindset. And the mindset, as you see on here, is the ideas and attitudes with which a person approaches a situation, especially when these are seen as being difficult to alter. And if you take a moment to run through your mind issues or incidents that come up, sometimes the mindset gets set. And whether it's presently in your current situation or a mindset that has been set way before in your childhood or growing up, that mindset is something that's there. I was, as I was telling Kendra before you all came up, I was in Beeville this past week because I had an uncle that passed away. And this was my daddy's brother, one of my daddy's brother. And that side, on the paternal side of the family, I don't associate too much with them because my mindset is that they were so, and mind you, my mom died in 84. So talk about this mindset that's with me of how they treated her. And my daddy had died in 78. And so that mindset has stayed with me when he died and the way that side of the family treated her. So in going to this funeral was a lot for me, guys, because normally I don't even acknowledge this side. But as I've gotten older and as all of this stuff has come about, I've recognized that I can't do this because my girls are having relationships with these cousins. And so one of the cousins had said at some point to them, well, Sandra, we weren't invited to the wedding. If you would have invited us, Sandra's my daughter, we would have come. And in the back of my mind, I thought, well, that's because when Sandra was making the wedding list, she said, Mom, who do you want me to invite? And I gave her all my maternal side addresses, but I didn't give her any addresses from the paternal side of the family. And it's this mindset, guys, that sets in. And what I'm sharing about, that I'm such a witch about this, is for you to think about how this mindset affects you in something that's happened either as a child or in a relationship or with kids, and how that mindset affects your whole life. And so what that does to you. So that's one of the reasons when Pat put this in there, I said, this fits perfectly because this mindset affects how we deal with situations mentally. So then this mindset, even though it's about my relatives, does affect my current relationships when I see situations that might be triggered by something. And without even thinking, that reminds me of that, it does affect current. So this is just for you to recognize that these mindsets happen and think about how that affects you. Pat.
I think that's good. I think we can all think of times where our mindset, we become fixed at a certain certain way that we want to look at a situation. And even if we're presented with information or evidence that maybe things are a little different than we anticipated, we say, no, I'm just going to move forward with this because I'm pretty sure that I'm right. And I've certainly been guilty of that. And I realize if I sit back and try to be more open, especially when it is difficult, when it's a trigger for us and it's a situation that comes real close to those sensitive nerves, that's the time to stop and to open ourselves up a little bit more, just to see if perhaps our mindset can be a little more flexible than initially approaching the situation.
So we come back to what we are and this phenomenal woman that we are. These are some of the that we came up with, Pat put on to here. It's like, this is a great woman, is great behind the wheels. So, hey, you can be talking about motorcycle wheels, truck wheels, car, or even behind the scene. Think about everything that you do in your life that you are driving the situation. And so you are the one behind the wheel. A phenomenal woman will network at ease. And you can walk into a room and you can pretty much feel what the room is like, and you're at ease with that. A phenomenal woman will accept womanhood with pride and help other women and men without any bias. Some of these are a little bit difficult for me, guys, but I have found that that once you open yourself up to do that, it opens up a new part of me that's going, ooh, that's good. That's good. I always like to say to the guys know this, that I always say, I have a list of magnificent 7 guys in my life that I find magnificent. There are 7 guys and that they've always been. And so I generally, some of them might fall off my list, but as a general rule, there's always at least 7 that I think, oh, that guy's not bad, that guy's. So that's how we talk about making ourselves phenomenal in being that open. Makes time for her personal self, tonight's focus, or any night. Takes hard decisions with an easy attitude. That is so difficult to do in some instances, but that is something we need to strive for. Facing their fears, once again, once we master that, that can be a great relief for us. And travel for self, making sure that we make time for us in this world really does help us. Pat?
I'm going to go on to the next one here.
So when we're talking about these 3 dimensions of well-being, this is what we've been talking about. The mind, which again, so difficult to do, but recognizing that they are definitely things that we need to do. And the body, without saying, you have to make sure that you do something for yourself. And of course, your soul, spiritual meditation, or whatever it is, something that is all about taking care of your inner self. With all of these 3 dimensions, you have to make sure that you put it in your focus areas to think, okay, the mind, the body, the soul. You have to make sure that each one of us has an equal space for your well-being.
That's right, Pat. And I think another thing to keep in mind is that, we can work on our bodies and we can work on our souls, our spirit, and the things that fill us on the inside. but it starts with the mind. It's the way that we think about things and how we approach it that will truly dictate how successful we are in any kind of changes with our body and how we allow our souls to be filled. So our well-being really does begin with our mind.
Any thoughts from anyone on those particular dimensions that we talk about that you want to share with us?
I just want to say, I guess I'm just in such agreement with this. As a coach, I see it so many times that someone can be working on their, they're working out, they go to church, they feel like they have great relationships, but in their mind, they're still telling themselves negative self-talk, or they're still battling the same mental habits of imposter syndrome or insecurities or self-doubt, whatever it is. And all of the good work that they're doing is negated by what's happening in their mind. So it truly does take all three of those to feel the success of the others. So I see it every day. I am such in agreement with this. It does take all three dimensions to truly feel healthy. We call it mentally wealthy. So we want to be mentally wealthy with your checkbook, but also with your mind, body, and soul.
Good.
I love
Good.
this. Great job, ladies. You're doing an awesome job.
All right.
Right. Thank you, Karen. So one of the things that I was looking at when Pat and I were preparing is just how the female brain operates. And there's no way to go into all of it today, but just three points. And I would encourage you to just Google stress in the female brain. And one thing we all hear many, many times is that stress robs us of our quality of life. So stress manifests itself in so many different ways, and there's plenty of research out there that shows that women absorb stress very differently than men, and there's good stress and there's destructive stress. But one of the things that I captured here, it says stress creates an additional stress on our bodies, and that in turn creates additional stress on our actions or our reactions. And we can all relate to that, I'm sure. When we're in a stressful situation, we tense up, our body is tense, we clench our hands, we clench our face, our bodies start just feeling very constricted. We can feel our temperatures rise, right? We can feel our heart start to pound, and stress can produce some very damaging things, and it breaks us down. So we have to understand that as women. One of the things that I also read is that the way the female brain is created, when we are in stressful situations, our brain is such that we're in tune with things that are that really pull on our emotions, and we internalize a lot of things. It's just part of how we were made. And so we have to understand that part of what makes us a great caretaker can also make us very susceptible to some of the damage that stress, ongoing, dealt with stress can do to us. So this third point says women suffer from life event situations very similar to post-traumatic stress. But when we have a series of life event situations, and sometimes they may be small, it's not for other people to judge, it's how it impacts us. Those consecutive, somewhat nonstop life event situations where we don't feel like we're ever able to regain our, regain our, I want to say balance, but I think you guys know more what I mean. But if you just can't regain yourself, that's when sometimes you just want to throw your hands up. And we have to learn that those events do make a difference. They do impact us. And it's okay to say, hold on, I need to take care of myself here. And it says the difference with stress for women is we become masters at those emotions that impact us from those life event situations, but many times we ignore them and we push them down, and it's very much to our own detriment. So there's a neurological response to stress for the female brain when we don't deal with stress in a positive way.
And I see that Kendra shared on here the book that's called The Body Keeps the Score. And that tells you, and I think Karen shared how true that is about talking about the body and what it does. And nothing brings this to mind. I'm going back to Kim Sullivan again, as we talked about since her passing. Another friend here in town was talking about having this daily or weekly conversation with Kim about some personal issue going on in her life, and that Kim kept calling her and saying, have you done this? Are you taking care of this? Are you sure you're doing this? And she'd say, yes, I am. And so focused on telling her what to do, but again, ignoring her own, what was going on in her body and in her life. It's to our detriment, as this says. We need to recognize that, yes, we're taking care of everyone else, but somewhere on there, we need to put a focus on ourselves, because this isn't something we just put up. This is actually true. And statistics and those books that we're talking about will tell you time and time again how these life event situations, similar to PTSD, make our life harder. Yeah. And we need to, if nothing else, recognize it.
Absolutely.
I love what y'all are saying. One thing that I've learned recently with my mom having lung cancer, and just seeing this over and over and over again, when we suppress our emotions or stress or anything, it manifests in our body as dis-ease. So that's why we call it disease. That's where it gets the name. And we literally can, at any time, any of us can have cancer cells in our body, but it's when our body is trying to fight all of these things and we're stressed and our cortisone is out of whack and, you know, our blood pressure is high and our organs are trying to fight all of these things just to keep us alive, that our body just gets so out of alignment and we get into these situations of disease. So yes, there are things that are hereditary, but there are things that we put upon ourselves by not managing and dealing with them. So when we harbor anger, bitterness, disease just manifests in our body. It is a manifestation of what is going on in our mind and in our spirit. So something to keep in mind is forgiveness is for us, not for the other person. So when we're harboring things and we're angry and we're not dealing with things, we are truly punishing ourselves and our body will show it. So if you're seeing things in your body, take an account of what's really going on inside. So just.
And you know, Karen, that is such an important thing that you bring up about forgiveness, because you're absolutely right. And this weekend epitomized that. Once I was able to say, that wasn't my problem, it wasn't my fault, I should just say, that's where they were coming from, and that was their mindset. And it was like, okay, and I've let it go. And so when she said, we're going to do a surprise party for mom, which of course is my dad's sister now, for her 80th, and we're going to do it in February. And of course, my daughter, you can see my daughter's eyes going like, "Oh, mom, please don't say anything." You know, just. And I said, "What a great idea! Keep us in the loop and let us know. Let Sandra know, and we'll be sure and come." It's during rodeo, but it's the last weekend of rodeo, and we're already winding down. And it was just the ability to be able to say, "I'm done. It's not important anymore." And, you know, my daughter's face, you could say like, "Oh, God, she's okay." So you're right. And it's that forgiveness part of it.
And I'll throw
Kendra,
out
can you?
I was just
Oh.
going to say, I'll throw out exercise. We've talked about this a lot, but I think, you know, there's only so much you can work out in your brain and in conversation. It really does get stored in our bodies. And I'm learning what a role exercise, even just walking, plays in relieving that and working that through. So just to add to our checklist of things to do, I would say, you know, put walking at a minimum on that list.
Kendra, can you speak, just give a 30-second commercial on why you picked that book?
Oh, I've probably read 50 books about trauma in the last few years. Many of you may know the hurricane kind of, I didn't realize it till later, but it definitely flipped my life upside down. Probably a year to 5 years. The first year was probably fine, but the second year and the subsequent years were pretty brutal and took me for a ride in just about every way, including it almost made me diabetic. So definitely relate to every bit of this. But that book to me was pretty, it made sense. It put things together in a way that, you know, that just, it made sense that our body, and even the title to some degree just makes sense, that, that our body does, keep a record, and if we don't really work to heal, there are physical places in our body where stress accumulates, and it can be a little bit different for each of us. But if we literally don't work that out, we might suffer longer than we need to.
And once again, the title of that book that Kendra is referring to is The Body Keeps the Score.
Well, if we're talking books, there's a new book. I'll put it in the chat, that I would actually say, it's called Outlive by Peter Attia. It's also on audiobook. He reads it. I would say it does a very good job of actually summarizing a lot of these things and giving you practical tools that are pretty reasonable for things that we can actually do to turn that dial. It's one thing to kind of realize you've got a problem. I was there for a long time, but not to know exactly what to do about it was tricky.
That's great. Thank you for sharing those resources. I'm going to keep going, but we invite everyone to share where you want to, because it's really helpful when you've found some great tools.
So as we've said before, these life events that are traumatic and challenging happen to each of us. You know, Kendra shared it. For those of you that don't know, she was in charge of the Port Royal during the when the hurricane hit. And as she said, when they remained unsettled, she was real cool. For the first year, they did the documentary about how she kept all of the staff employed. It's a great story. But we carry them with us throughout our lives, our relationships, and our behaviors. And then it started to hit her, as she said later on, as life was happening. and recognizing that these definitely have an impact on us, guys. And just think about something in your life, whether it's a relationship or a death that you weren't expecting, how, or even a situation, at work, something that you thought, wow. And when you stop and think, when did this start to make me angry, or when did this start to make me so jittery, or that I started taking it all in, you have to be aware and recognize that that's what happened. So more than anything, all we want to make sure, if nothing else, that you come away with recognizing that any of these events will have an impact on you.
Absolutely. So we've kind of touched on this kind of early, Pat, but I think it's still worth it to pause just to ask people to share any additional tools that you've used to cope with stressful moments, or when you know that you're kind of off kilter a little bit and you just need to kind of get recentered. What are some of the other things that you guys do? It doesn't have to be something really big. It's just what works for you. How do you get back there, back to where you want to be?
So I know I heard walking, and I know that Doris makes a habit of meeting with her friends every Sunday morning, and they do some walking and talking. And then I also heard books, that there's definitely some books that have helped with this situation. Anybody else have anything else?
Prayer, good old prayer.
Oh, yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
I can share a little bit. At the height of COVID, we were all, my friends and I, we were all very stressed out because we like to do runs. We were used to going out there 2 or 3 times a month, doing a 5K, whatever, right? Well, during COVID, everything shut down and everything stopped. So we were finding ourselves, we didn't know what to do. We just needed to do something. So about 6 of us started getting together. We made a standing 7 o'clock at the walking trails with our masks, right? Eventually they came off, but we would walk not close to each other, but we were out there every Saturday and Sunday. And that really helped us get through a lot. And it was just walking, anywhere from 3 to 5 miles. By the time we were done, hour and a half, and we just talked about everything. So we continue to do that. And now, of course, we're back on our runs and trails and things like that. But it was right in the middle of COVID. So I even got to do one like 2 months after my recovery from COVID. So that really kept us going. Just seeing people out there, even if it was at a distance.
Absolutely.
That's great. That connection is always so powerful.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely needed.
That's good.
I don't know if anyone else does any kind of breathing techniques, but there's somatic breathing and just box breathing. I don't know if anybody's heard that, or 4-count breathing, where you breathe in, you take a big breath for 4, hold it for 4, breathe out for 4, hold out for 4. That helps just regulate your heartbeat, your heart rate. It just helps you calm down and gets you mindful into what is going on in the present moment. So if I find myself getting really frustrated or irritated about something, I will literally change my environment. So I'll walk out of the room and then just do that 4 or 5 times and just take that big deep breath. I also have one person that's my sounding board. So I have one person that's my safe person that I can call, and it's like, hey, I just need to vent, and I'll just vent, download. They don't try to fix it. They don't try to help me. they just allow me to express it and get it out of my body. Because sometimes that's all you need, is just to say it. And then it's like, oh, okay, now that I've said it, it doesn't have the power anymore and I can move on. And I didn't act on it. I didn't do anything irrational. I didn't do anything stupid. I don't feel it in my body anymore. Now I can move on. So those are two things that are really helpful for me, as a sounding board person, a safe person, and then just breathing and being able to change my situation.
You are so right. I like to call it the kitchen cabinet. I always tell women when they're running for office, whatever you do to keep you grounded, find yourself a kitchen cabinet of a core group of people that are always with you. Because one, we want you to not buy into the good old boy network, but at the same time to keep you grounded. And this is what happens when you have that core group that you get together regularly, as Armadina mentioned, or it's so key to our well-being. And so, you know, there was 4 of us that used to, that did that. And it was like, we would get together. We had a birthday in January, April, July, and June. And so once a quarter, we would do a getaway weekend where we would make time for that. And now that there's 3 of us and we still do that, to have a games night once a month or every other month, to kind of just come together and de-stress or vent or whatever, that this is a trusted environment, like you've mentioned, like Dina mentioned, that helps you with that. So definitely, so true.
Women especially, we're very communal creatures. We need to have that community of safe, trusted, which is why the PSPs are meeting monthly now. It's good to have that connection. We need to support each other. And as president now, it's really important for me. It's been so helpful to hear and see and feel the support of women who have gone the path before me. I feel seen and heard and safe. So I know I have people that have my back, and we just underestimate the power of that sometimes, I think, for each other. Just being there, being present, the power of our presence.
Well, I'd like to mention, and I echo everything that you guys have shared. I wrote down the term friendship therapy. And sometimes a person will just pop into your mind, someone you haven't talked to in a long time. But when you act on that and you reach out and you talk to that person, it's another way to kind of feel a part of your soul. And they make you feel better about life. They give you courage. They make you laugh, or sometimes they really make you think in a positive way. So someone joined the call who does that for me. And I just want to recognize there's a couple of you may know her. Her name is Rolina McGee, but I call her Sissy. And Sissy, if your camera's on, can you at least wave to people so we can see you? And I'm catching her off guard, and if not, that's fine. But I just want to recognize that friendship therapy makes a big difference. So we'll see if she joins us. I know Kendra knows her. So that's fine. We'll see if she pops on. She's not shy. So, all right. Well, I'll go on to the next one.
So we've covered this, but it doesn't hurt for us to keep talking and calling it different. The benefits of asking for help. As Madam President talked about, the group that she has, the gut checks for honest feedback, which what we call the kitchen cabinet, or the people like Sissy, taking care of the circle of those we care for. That is what we are about. And Karen mentioned that how we're very communal, and we do that. And Pat used this particular one that I just love. When you take care of yourself, you take care of me.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I think I just unmuted myself. I'm using an iPhone. This is Sissy. I'm using an iPhone. Normally, I do my Zoom meeting on a computer, so I was muted and talking. I'm so sorry. And now I think I hit the right button, but I'm just gonna stay a little blurred out because I literally just got out the shower and noticed, and I don't want to scare anyone to death. So, um, thank you, Pat. Yes, you're my therapy too. So, hi, Kendra. I know a few of you, but you probably don't remember. Of course, I remember Kendra. Hey, Kendra. Okay, so now I'm gonna go and be quiet again as soon as I figure out how to mute myself again.
Oh, thank you, Susie. All right, I'll go on to the next one.
Anything that you wanted to add on that, Pat?
No,
I think
just
Sylvia came off mute. I think she may have had something also
Mm.
to add.
No, just I was asked to unmute myself, so I did.
Oh, okay.
I just didn't want my puppies to be disturbing everybody, so.
Uh-oh. Everybody there?
Yeah, go
Oh, I'm
back to
sorry.
you missed
Yeah,
the slide.
my screen just went away for some reason. Okay, there we go.
Gotta love technology.
Hmm. Okay. Here, and you guys know this, just the different levels of support. We've already spent a lot of time talking about friends, our mentors. Sometimes we just need more of a professional, you know, perspective, someone that isn't necessarily going to give us warm and fuzzies, but just will tell it to us straight like it is. And it's important to reach out to those individuals. And then of course, professional help. And it's so important. We hear this all the time, but we know this is breast awareness month, right? Take care of the girls, go get your mammograms. But it's also important for us to take care of our mental health. And if we don't have a good counselor that we can reach out to, we need to consider that. Just like we know we need a good gynecologist, we need a good cardiologist, internist, family doctor. Consider making that connection and having someone that we can reach out to, because many great women and great men have attributed the fact that they were willing to reach out to someone who didn't know us, who were professionals, to truly help us work through some of those longer term impacts. So, let's make a commitment to ourselves. I'm going to make a commitment to myself. I do know someone, and every time I see her, I say, I'm going to schedule an appointment with you. And she goes, uh-huh. So I'm going to reach out to that person because it's important. Okay, I'm watching our time, but we're doing pretty good, Miss Pat.
Yes, ma'am.
So just real quickly, I want to do one mindfulness exercise with us. And there's a link on here, and we'll send this deck to you, Madam President, so that you can send it out to people. So I would encourage you guys to click on this link. But right now, you guys should all, if you could, just grab a pen and a piece of paper, and you're not going to share it with anyone. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can ask everyone to just zone everything out. And I'm going to ask you to do this exercise. So I'm going to give everybody about 10 seconds to make sure you have something to write with. And if you've done this before, that's awesome. But this is just a mindfulness exercise. Okay? So I want you to be in the moment and try to put everything aside. Everybody just take one good cleansing deep breath in slowly. And exhale slowly. Oh, okay. So I want you to think about 5 things that you see. And I want you to just write down those 5 things. This is not a right or wrong answer. It's truly just, what are you experiencing right now? So write down 5 things that you see.
5 things that what?
Oh, 5 things that you see. I apologize. So what we're going to do is engage each one of our senses. So just 5 things that you see, write those down. Okay. Next, I want you to write down 4 things that you hear. So just be in tune with your surroundings. What do you hear? Four items. Now, I want you to think about 3 things that you can either feel or touch. What's around you? What are 3 things that you can touch? Like for me right now, the cool counter. What are some other things? Just 3 things. And now 2, I want you to think of 2 things that you can smell. Close your eyes. What are 2 things that you can smell? Hopefully good smells. I can smell one of my coffee cups that I left this morning. Those are good smells to me. And then the last thing, 1 thing that you can taste. There's 1 thing you can taste right now. And for me, it's my Chinese food that I had right before we got online. So this exercise just represents a way for us to, and I'm reading this from the site that you guys have a link to, says it's a simple way for us to become more in tune with our sensory experiences and to be present in the moment. And what that does, it helps us to become aware that there's more to observe and experience with each passing moment than we may realize. We allow ourselves to get so wound up, we forget to be here now. We forget to be present. And when we learn how to settle ourselves and just be present and take it in, it will help us to increase our sense of gratitude, and it'll give us a sense of clarity and direction to be able to take the next steps when we're ready. So that's something very small, very simple, and you can figure out things that might help you. But I thought that was an interesting exercise to do just for a moment, especially because we can all be so busy. So I hope that you enjoyed that really quick mindfulness moment. So let me go back to PowerPoint. We're almost done.
So mindfulness apps. So we talk about what are ways. Obviously, yoga is one way. I've seen that done time and time again. But actual apps, I do a class on this, but this is my favorite. I mean, and there's something called My Life, the Headspace, Calm, Beautify, Butterfly, 10% Happier. But my favorite one is this one, this insighttimer.com. This is the free one. All the other ones have a little bit of free, but then you get into the having to pay. But this particular one is always free. Take the time to look at. Additionally, your Amazon Alexa and Google Home offer guided meditations. Those are definitely ones that you can always use. That inside timer has different things. It has music at night if you want to go to sleep, or different sounds, as well as meditation. Any of that is available on these mindfulness apps. There's plenty of them. As I said, the only one I would give you here is this one because I know it's free and I use this one a lot. One little disclaimer, obviously, it does take some of your data on your phone, so keep it plugged in. Okay.
So now we have a call for action. As we said at the very beginning, and again, being mindful of our time, there's no way to delve into all the things that we've talked about tonight, but hopefully there's a few nuggets that we can walk away with and become intentional on how we're going to be more mindful. And so if we look at the call for action, you know, last month, Kim's service, goodbye service, was on the 10th, whatever that date was. I don't know if it was the 10th, but it was the day that we were supposed to have our session last month. And so we saw that as a sign of her really giving us her goodbye wishes. And if we think about some lessons that we have from our dear friend Kim, I think one of the things she would say, well, something she would tell me all the time: don't do as I do, but do as I say. Take time for yourself. And it's hard to do, and the harder it is to do, the more we need to do it. And Kim left us way too soon. And I think that she would want us to know, if she were here today, please, please, we can't afford not to prioritize ourselves. So that's one of the lessons that I walk away with from Kim. And Pat, do you want to take the second one?
So self-compassion, it's just so difficult for us to make that time to, as we're so used to taking care of, whether we're grandmas or whether we're taking care of parents or whether we're taking care of a spouse or whether we're taking care of our kids. But to make time for that self-compassion, and that's a difficult word for us to think about, compassion for ourselves. As I can't say enough, as after Kim is gone, when I've talked to several people that she was having this taking care of their needs, time and time again, there's been more than one friend that she was so adamant about keeping up with them and then making time for herself. And I like to think that at the end, from our last past state presidents, when she shared that she had even started to look for some help from the VA, that definitely brings us to mind that it is time to have some self-compassion for ourselves.
So I think it takes courage for us to be mindful. You know, Pat shared some of the characteristics of a phenomenal woman, and that's really been our focus. To make one of the characteristics is that she makes time for her personal self. I am important. And so we can't ignore our personal needs and be phenomenal at the same time. If we're really, really worth it and we believe that about ourselves, then we have to also believe that we want to and need to prioritize our mental health. And so just a couple, whoops, sorry, let me go back. Just a couple more thoughts, and then we'll give everybody a chance to just say one thing that you're going to take away from our time today, this evening. But it says here, self-care is an act of self-love. If we really, really love ourselves, are we caught up with our doctor's appointments? Are we caught up with our exams? You know, do we talk to our friends and ask how they're doing with their exams and ask some of those hard questions? So what's your next move? What's the one thing you will do next to be more mindful? So let me see, 8:27. Maybe we can give people a chance to put things in the chat, and then if a couple people want to comment, then we can give a little bit of space to that. I think we only have like maybe 2 slides left. But if you guys would be willing to just put in the chat, what's one thing you will do next to be more mindful? Yeah, is there anything you'd like to add?
Just remembering, as we shared before, that when you take care of yourself, you're taking care of me.
We're just going to pause for about 60 seconds because this is very important. Okay, great to see that, Lois. Thank you. And Sylvia. Meditate and reward myself with a healthy, tangible. You can't underestimate that. Shopping therapy is a therapy as long as we couple it with some other things, right? Restart meditation. Oh, we could do a session on meditation, I'm sure, just to slow down. Go with a friend to a difficult appointment. That's important.
Yeah, I love the exercise you took us through, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That was so good. Because one of the things that I've committed to doing is doing, which is funny, is being, not doing more. So just being present. I'm great about being in the room and multitasking. I'm doing 5 things at a time and not just being aware of the things that I need to. So that was a great exercise because it's like, oh, I can feel the floor and the air on my skin, and just that was a great exercise.
That's wonderful. I'm glad. And actually, now that I remember where we got it from, and they did it at work because they know how stressed out people are.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we had a session on that at work.
And that's something you could do anywhere. Just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things I can see, 4 things I can hear, 3 things I can feel, 2 things I can smell, 1 thing I can taste. Love it.
5 senses. All right. Oh, I love that. Listening to soft music, reaching out to friends, going with a friend to a difficult appointment, exercise and meditate. So there's some great thoughts there. That's wonderful. So let's go to our final slides.
So Maya Angelou, if you never had the chance to hear her, she was at our national conference. She's been at several of my other organizations, definitely defined by her responses to tragic situations. If you have a chance to read her book, it's just amazing. But she rose above these circumstances. And of course, that's what we are, a phenomenal woman indeed. And our well-being is counting on us.
Absolutely.
So once again, guys, we're right on 8:31. We thank you so much for taking time to join us. Pat and I are always grateful to do stuff like this, Madam President. So thank you for giving us that opportunity.
Thank you, ladies. Such a great job. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Our next TBW Tuesday will be on November the 14th. And Kendra Kinnison and Pat Jasso will be talking about AI. So we're going to be thankful for AI in November. And Laura Wisenhunt is also going to have a moment where we recognize our veterans, because it's also the week of Veterans Day. We want to take a moment to recognize and be thankful for those that were veterans. And we'll just enjoy another moment like this. If you are a past state president, remember that we are jumping on 30 minutes early for a social time. So at 7, we will see our past state presidents. And at 7:30, our content will start for 1 hour. So thank you again. We're going to have these recorded and begin to post these on our YouTube. So if you can't jump on live, then you'll be able to watch these in recording on our YouTube. So thank you, ladies, so much. Have a fabulous month. Enjoy it. And we will see you in November.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you,
all.
everyone.
Thank you
Great
all.
Great job,
seeing
ladies.
you.
Good night.
Have a healthy week and rest of the month.
Thank you. Great job.
Great job, ladies.
Great reminders.
Likely as always, Madam President, to choose the topic. Because today